for taking time to visit with us this morning. We're delighted to see the turnout that we have today. I wanted to first start out by mentioning that this is the first of a series of opportunities for the public to be engaged in finding out what this study has concluded. We will expect to have additional opportunities for public comment outside of the workday and with the various constituencies that depend upon 911, the fire community, police community, EMS, and others. So we're grateful to see a turnout that is broadly representative of those that use our services, and we thank you for taking the time out of the day for this very important announcement. I wanted to start by introducing Mike McGrady. We're delighted that he brings nearly 3 decades, 29 years of experience in 911 emergency management and consulting to Snyder County. He can tell you a bit more about his background, but obviously he has served in various capacities to know what is best practice and has worked throughout the state of Pennsylvania in detailing and analyzing the various aspects of 911 service delivery. We're grateful to see the results of this study today, and there will be a PowerPoint, an executive summary emailed to the entire distribution list of both Union and Snyder County's first response community when this is concluded. And you'll have opportunities to ask questions of Mike during this briefing. We're also delighted to announce that the study itself, that cost $55,000, has received grant funding from a competitive process through PEMA. So the entire study is funded by PEMA, and both counties received news of that within the last few weeks. So we're grateful for that and the support of PEMA in this process. Without further ado, I do want to turn this over to Mike McGrady, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you. My name is Mike McGrady. I'm the president of MCM Consulting Group. We're based out of State College, Pennsylvania. My background is initially went to school for biology and then decided I wanted to be a paramedic. So I went to paramedic school at the University of Pittsburgh, and I was a Pittsburgh paramedic for 7 years. I became a crew chief, and then I was asked to go down to Pittsburgh 911 back in 1992 to look at their system, and I helped straighten out Pittsburgh's 911. I left there and became the deputy chief-in-chief for one of the regional centers in Allegheny County. After I had my 20 years in, I started a consulting company actually based by myself. Now we actually have 4 divisions in our company. We do 911, we do emergency management, we do GIS, and we have a whole hospital division. And I've run that company from the last 12 years. So I do have a lot of background in 911 as well as in public safety. You know, I was in the city of Pittsburgh from 1985 through, I guess it was 1998, and I went through the crack wars, the gang wars, so I, as well as then working in the suburban communities as well as the rural communities. So I do have a large background in what we'll be talking about today. So why were we hired? Well, as you know, in Pennsylvania, there's not enough money to actually pay all the bills in 911, even with the new legislation that passed. So with many Pennsylvania counties facing, a stir fiscal environment and rising costs for their public safety answering points, otherwise known as 911 centers, and advances that have been made in 911 technology, such as next generation 911, they hired MCM to come in and look, at the feasibility of possibly consolidating the 2 911 centers. We also did this for Allentown, Bethlehem, which were the only 2 cities left that had PSAPs in Pennsylvania, in Lehigh County and Northampton County. And we're happy to say that that merger will be occurring over the next 2 years. So what was our methodology? Well, we developed a project team, and that was staff from both Snyder County as well as Union County and MCM, consultants, engineers, and architects. Interviews conducted, and that was the most important part of the process, was interviewing the police, the fire, the EMS, local and county EMA, as well as some elected officials, because we needed to see what their input was as part of this process. We did site visits. We had our engineers look at the equipment, the CPE, which is your customer premise equipment. That's your 911 switch, as well as your radio systems, your log and recorder. That records not only the voice that comes into the 911 center, but every activity that they do on their computers is also recorded. And then we looked at the integration of systems, could we actually integrate these systems together? We reviewed and analyzed the current operations. We looked at the triennial plan. The triennial plan is every 3 years, all counties of Pennsylvania have to give a plan as to their expenses, their revenues, versus any technology upgrades or any operational changes for the next 3 years. We looked at the regional shared services assessments. The state of Pennsylvania paid for consulting firms like ours to do studies, and we did 20 of the counties in Pennsylvania, to look at the next 5-year plan for your county 911 system, as well as next generation 911. We looked at the budgets, we looked at the staffing and your call dispatch volumes, and any ancillary services that your center provides. Most small or rural counties provide more than just 911. They answer the non-emergency phones. A lot of times, after hours, they are the one call number for probation, for children youth services, etc. We looked at all of those services. We looked at other services they might have provided to state agencies also, and that was all part of the study. And then we are not architects, we're engineers, we're consultants, so we brought in the EADS group, who's an architectural firm that we work with when we build 911 centers. And they looked at the space, both at Union County as well as at the current Snyder County facility. So when we looked at call volumes, we looked at the 911 call volume as well as non-emergency and inbound and outbound calls. And you'll be surprised that usually you do 2 to 3 times as many non-emergency admin and outbound calls as you actually do 911 calls. There's still a lot of what we call refrigerator numbers, where years ago you had a 7-digit number on a sticker on your refrigerator, and that's the number that they call. Well, of course, when you went to 911, those numbers are still out there, so those still come into the 911 center. So for Snyder County, they had 10,420 total 911 calls. But they had 31,994 10-digit non-emergency inbound and outbound calls. And then when you look at Union County, they had 6,190 inbound 911 calls. And that's wireline, wireless, or voice over IPs. And then they had 36,832 10-digit calls for a total of 53,022 calls. Total calls combined is 93,381. And that is typical for a 6th, 7th class county call volume. No higher, no lower, it's just about average. And we looked at the budgets. What were the budgets for the 911 center? $1,402,000 for Snyder, and Union County was $1,782,000. So the total combined budgets were a little over $3 million for both facilities. And what are some common themes when we did the interviews? And I will tell you, we had very good turnout for the interviews. We were quite happy with not only the amount of people that showed up, but the different agencies, police, fire, EMS, local EMA, etc. Well, the current level of service that's being provided to the citizens must be maintained, if not improved. So if we do look at a merger, it has to at least stay the same, if not improved. I will tell you, if you do go through with this, your service will improve. And here's an example. On night terror, you have 2 people working in each center. What do you do when you have a working structure fire, you have a police chase, and you have somebody in cardiac arrest, and you have 2 people working, as opposed to having 4 people working in a combined center. When you look at the staffing levels, you'll see the amount of people you have that you can actually call in from home when something big happens, and how many positions you actually have at the center. So sometimes a consolidated center will improve that. People would like cost savings through regionalization or consolidation. The difference between regionalization and consolidation is regionalization is typically when you share technology. It's where you might have 4 or 5 counties sharing a 911 switch, or a logging recorder, or a radio system. Consolidation is when you physically consolidate public safety answering points together. Of course, there's concern about job security concerns, but again, I can answer that most likely there would be no job loss through here, because each center is a little bit understaffed right now, and our staffing ratios would actually take all the current employees and put them into positions in a new facility. And the availability and need for sufficient space, and that's why we brought the architects in, so they could look at the actual space in each center and determine what facility would be best for a consolidated center. Some other questions were, how do we integrate protocols? Because each center does things a little bit different. I take this as an opportunity to take the best of both centers' protocols and make it one combined protocol that's the best it can possibly be. Governance structure, who will be in charge? And that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later. And the need for a comprehensive plan and a well thought out process. The study is the easy part. Actually doing the physical consolidation and all the technology and all the policy and procedures, that's the harder part, and that takes more time than a 6-month study. And more efficient and effective operations by the public safety answering point. If we didn't think this would be better for the public, better for the public safety agencies, then we wouldn't recommend it. You know, I did work the field, I did run a 911 center, so I know what good service is and I know what bad service is. And of course, we want the best service possible for the residents, the visitors, and of course, the public safety agencies that we all serve. So when we look at staffing, there's a couple ways you can do it. Each public safety answering point was asked to submit staffing requirements for each of their facilities. And the first thing you look at is historical projected anticipated leave. It's just not vacation time. You have to look at average vacation holiday leave. What about personal leave? Because that's all part of it. You look at training leave. How often do our people, are they not on the consoles because they're receiving continuing education? Average military, Family Medical Leave Act, etc. Average lunch breaks, and then other activities that would affect people actually being at a position. And that's meetings, light duty, special assignments, etc. We use what's called APCO Project Retains. It's the Association of Professional Communications Officials. It's one of the national 911 organizations. They worked for years to come up with a staffing formula so that you can actually use it to determine how many staff you should truly have at your 911 center. So actually, you know, the typical person works 2,080 hours a year. You're working 40 hours a week times 52, that's what you work. But when you take all those things I previously talked about into consideration, you actually have 1,708 available hours actually on the position at the console. So for Snyder, you have 9 full-time, 10 part-time, 1 supervisor. Okay? APCO retains recommended 10 full-time positions. When you look at Union County, they have 9 full-time, 1 part-time. They recommend that you have 11 full-time positions. And the total recommendation would be 21 in the consolidated center. So each center was slightly understaffed. Now, over at Snyder, the part-timers sort of made up for that. You know, but at Union, you're a little bit short on that. So a total of 21 is what you need in a consolidated center. Then we looked at personnel. We looked at administrative positions. So you have the operations manager, 911 coordinator, quality assurance, and CAD. CAD is computer-aided dispatch. That's, of course, put all the response plans in, run cards, do beats, and things like that. And then, of course, you know, a CAD manager, that should actually say GIS manager. So that's a typo, that should say GIS manager. The current combined administrative expenses is $257,000 for both centers. In a combined center, it would be about $176,000. So you'd have to save about $81,000 when you came to administrative positions. Because there's double positions right now. They have all these positions in both centers. You don't need that, you don't need 8 people running that in the center. Look at equipment costs. What does it cost? You know, personnel is expensive, but the equipment is getting more and more expensive by the day. So computer-aided dispatch maintenance, it's $20,000 for Snyder County right now. It's $48,000 for Union County. Console, tower, radio system maintenance, it's $53,000 for Snyder. It's $122,000 for Union County. CPE, that's your 911 switch, and I will tell you, Union County's 911 switch is at the end of life. It needs to be replaced. And that's $45,300 for Snyder, and Union is $40,800. Now, they are looking at a regional project in which you're going to actually have 8 counties sharing a 911 switch. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but that actually would be paid for 100% by the state, and it would reduce everybody's cost. And then recorder maintenance, that's the recorder that actually logs all the telephone calls and all the data that's going through the center. It's $21,000 for Snyder, and Union is $16,000. So you look at 140 and 227, and if you would combine those, you would save about $125,000 a year just on maintenance costs across the system. There's also some future costs that are coming down the line. The 911 switch, it needs replaced at Union County. Snyder counties has a few more years for that needs replaced. So instead of having 2 CPE systems, instead of having 2 CAD systems, 2 logger recorders, 2 radio consoles, chairs, console furniture, You only need one, okay? The difference is, instead of trying to buy the lowest cost one, you could buy the best one possible that you need for your center, that meets your needs. A lot of times what happens, people have to buy the lower cost one because they don't have enough money to pay their bills. This way, if you combine your funds together, you can get the best equipment that meets your needs in the most cost-efficient way. With consolidation, these funds can be paid for out of the state 911 fund. The way the law works today is 2% of the money, or up to 2% of the money, goes back to PEMA to run the fund. 83% of that money comes directly back to the 911 center. 3% is equally distributed across the board to all PSAPs. So that helps the small ones like Cameron County, Franklin, Forest County, so they get a fair amount of money. And then the other 80% is divided based on call volume, population, past expenses. But there's a 15% fund. And that 15% fund is worth about $48 million a year. And if you do a regionalization of technology project, if you do a consolidation project, they will pay for your projects at 100%. So that's a big cost savings across the board for not only this project, but any project that you work with other counties on. So far for this year, they've granted, I believe, around $22 million in those grants, and there's another $20 million that they're going to hand out. So that'll be about $42 million, and then there's some additional funds that once all those projects are funded, they'll use the other $6 million for the next round of projects. So a total of 40 funds possibly this year could be funded out of that 15%. So what are some equipment costs? Well, your 911 switch is about $250,000 a piece, for a second class county. Computer-aided dispatch center is about $300,000 a piece. Log recorder is about $50,000. Radio consoles are about $300,000. And what a radio console is, that's what connects to your radio system, so you can dispatch the police, the fire, the EMS, you can set off the tones, etc. And then console furniture, believe it or not, it's about $100,000 for 6 positions, and that's the specialized furniture that you have for a 911 center. And then chairs. Chairs are about $1,200 a piece. But when you're sitting in a chair 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and you want it to last, that's what a chair costs. So the potential capital savings over 7 years, not including maintenance and inflation, is a little over $1 million. And that's just for these 2 small counties. So you can see why the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is trying to use that 15% money to help people consolidate or regionalize technology, because at the end of the day, it saves money. It makes things more efficient. So, what are our recommendations? Well, the first thing is we do believe, due to the size of your counties and the call volume and the staffing that you have, that you should consolidate down to 1 center. And we believe the best facility for that would be at Snyder County's 911 Center EMA office. That is an old PSP barracks, which is actually very well built. I'm not sure the troopers would agree to that, but overall it's a very well built structure. It's a very well built structure. And the nice thing about that is there's room for expansion there. 3 sides, we could expand that facility if we needed to. But it has all the room that we need right now. There's currently 6 positions in there, and that's what we recommend is 6 positions for a 6-class county. There's 4 right now at Union, but you would have 6 positions there. You'd have 4 people working, but you would have additional space for 2 more. And then what you could do is under the floor, you could put wiring for another 2 positions for future growth down the line. What's nice about having additional positions also, if you want to do maintenance, you can take a couple of positions down while you're doing the maintenance and you're not affecting the whole operation of the center. The big issue you have with Union County is there's no room for growth there. It's a nice facility, but you have 4 positions and there's nowhere to grow. You can't move into the beautiful, EOC training room that they have, and you certainly don't want to take out their kitchen that they have in that facility, and that's what you would have to do. Snyder County is limited for office space for administrative personnel. So in order to accommodate the recommended administrative positions, we think you're going to have to do some reconfiguration of that building. There's no doubt about that. So you're going to have to do some reconfiguration of the building so you have enough space for administrative positions. Again, we talked about they're a little bit understaffed. You should have 21 full-time positions. And by having 21 full-time positions, you could have 4 on duty, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. What you'd probably do is once you did the consolidation, you would look at some power shifts. So maybe from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., you might have 3 people working, but Friday night and Saturday night, you might have a power shift from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m., because that's your busier time. So those are things that you would actually look at and tweak, down the line. But 21 full-time positions would give you what you need to fully staff that center. Police dispatcher, fire dispatcher, call taker, additional person for when it gets busy for either police, fire, or EMS. And we believe that with the current staff you have, and you have very good staff, both in your administrative level, with Lisa and Cheryl and Chad, etc., and then your actual telecommunicators, you have very good staff. So, the key is take the existing people you have and put them into the new facility. Because they're already trained, they know the areas, but more importantly, they have the experience that you want. You give people with tremendous years of experience that I think you don't want to lose. It's also recommended for 4 full-time administrative positions be located in the Consolidated 911 Center. You would have a 911 coordinator, and they would be responsible for the overall operations of the Consolidated PSAP. So that's the boss, the chief, however you want to call it. And then below that, you have an operations manager, and that's technical and personal management for the Consolidated PSAP. Okay. Now, of course, the operations manager can be more on running the operations and technical. The 911 coordinator would actually do the hiring, firing, etc. And then the quality assurance training manager, responsible for the telecommunications training quality assurance. By law, you have to do so much training. By law, you have to listen to so many 911 calls, so many dispatches, etc. But that person can do quality assurance and training. And it's important that you do both of those, because when that person is listening to the phones and they're saying, why do we keep making the same mistake? Well, you go back and you look at the training program. It makes an issue with the training program, or makes an issue with the personnel. But it's important that you do both of those positions. And then the CAD manager, they're responsible for the maintenance of the CAD data as well as the GIS and the PSAP, Geographic Information Systems. And right now, everything's tabular. So when you dial 911 from a wireline phone, it goes to your local central office, and then it sees the 911 call, it jumps on 911 trunk, it goes to the tandems, and it says, this call 555-1212 belongs to Union County, and transfer call is done. As soon as they pick up the phone, it goes out to a database, and it picks up, your location information and comes back. Wireless goes to, a tower. It goes to a mobile switching center, which says, again, that phone number is located here. It comes to 911 center, it goes back out and gets you the lat and longitude. But it's all tabular. It looks at a table. It says, okay, this number belongs here. But when you go to next generation 911, it's all geographic information system. It's all map based. So it's literally a point on a map. So when you call in and it says, this latitude, this longitude, it goes to a point on a map. If you're on a road, it tells you what road you're on. On a clear day like this, let's say within about 5 feet. Inside this building, right now it's hit or miss within a couple hundred yards probably, you would say. But if you are in your house 5 years from now, it's going to go to a point on your house. Even though it's a wireless call, it's going to say that latitude, that longitude, and that elevation. You're on the second floor of 1532 Milton Avenue, in Milton Township. And that's what's all going. And that's why you need a good GIS system. That's why whoever does your CAD should also do your GIS, so that you have a good geographic information system. A consolidation oversight board should be established with representatives from both PSAPs and counties. The board will be responsible for developing the operational and logistical plans for consolidation of the county PSAPs. This would not be a governance board, but rather an operational board to oversee the technical and operational consolidation of the PSAPs. It's very important that you have input from the police, the fire, the EMS, emergency management, when you are looking at consolidating services as well as policies, procedures, and protocols, that everybody has a say, in what's going to move forward. I will tell you, there's always room for improvement. You can have great policy and procedures, but you can always make them better. And that's what would happen in this situation. And then a permanent governance board should be established, for governance and consolidated PSAP. Both counties utilize jointer boards and be acceptable method of governance for consolidated PSAP. The board will be responsible for any necessary intergovernmental agreements or memorandums of understanding that the counties would enter into for joint governance, funding, and operations of the PSAP. I will tell you that the northern tier, which goes all the way from Little Cameron County, 5,400 people, up to Erie County that has about 300,000 people. They have been doing a joint project for 3 years now. They're the largest next generation 911 system in the country. That's 10 counties sharing 2 911 switches over a 10 gigabit fiber network. And they use an intergovernmental agreement that runs that. Of course, they can't spend money. Only the commissioners, or the county executive and county council in Erie can spend money. But it actually, it governs, the operations of that agreement. And it's actually worked quite well for the last 3 years. So what's the time frame? Well, it doesn't happen overnight. So short term is establishment of the Consolidated Oversight Board and begin planning of the integration of the PSAPs for the consolidation phase. Just don't forget, you have to keep running your operations day in, day out to the day you actually do the cutover. Medium term, 6 months through 2 years. Let's look at funding for consolidation efforts requested from FEMA. So, Allentown, Bethlehem, Lehigh, and Northampton put in for all their consolidation costs, and they were awarded about $8 million for consolidation of those 4 entities into the counties. So that is FEMA's and representatives in the state and Senate #1 priority is consolidation. So if you have a consolidation project, voluntary consolidation, of course, it's not mandatory, voluntary, then it is the #1 priority that gets funded. Montour and Columbia County are merging together. And again, that was funded at 100%. So that's the #1 priority. But you still have to do the paperwork. Paperwork would be going probably, June 30th of next year, awards by September 30th of next year, so you know how much money you're actually getting for the consolidation. But you have to get all your ducks in order prior to putting that application in. So they'll actually, review it and fund that application. Required infrastructure work for consolidation. So we have, of course, looked at all that, but there's a lot of work to tie radio systems together, 911 systems together. All of that has to be done. Call taken, dispatch consoles integrated as necessary, radio systems connected, and any needed renovations to the Snyder County facility. So some renovations will be needed to be done to the facility so you can have the best operations possible. Training of staff on revised protocols and standard operating procedures that have been developed by the Oversight Board. You just don't want to, turn the system on without them. If you change your policies, if you change your procedures, if you change how you're dispatching or call taking, all that has to be done ahead of time so that when they do the initial cutover, everybody's working on the same sheet of music. Development of the Oversight of the Authority Joint Report for Governance of Consolidated PSAP by the 4 municipal governments and the final Oversight Board, including intergovernmental agreements. And then, of course, staffing and salary decisions. How much do you pay a telecommunicator? How much do you pay a trainee? How much do you pay a telecommunicator? What do you pay your 911 coordinator? What do you pay your operations manager? All those things have to be figured out and determined. What is the benefit package? Whose pension plan? What health care plan are you getting? What short and long-term disability plan? All those things have to be thought out and addressed prior to anything occurring. So it's a lot of work. And then long-term year 3 physical consolidation of the PSAPs into the Snyder County facility. Can you get done sooner? Sure. If things go, if they go well and there's no issues, you can probably do it in 2 years or less. But you always want to have that extra time just in case things take a little bit longer than we thought. Ancillary services, all the things that they do that aren't 911. That can be from being, taking the calls for probation, answering the phones for children and youth, whatever it might be that they do after hours, or, when the officers call in and need something done. That will all continue for both counties. That's not going to go away, because that's what makes them actually a very good 911 center, providing all those ancillary services. When you take the call, that, hey, the roads are really, not a 911 force, on the non-emergency line, that the roads are really bad, and they call out public, they call the first person at the town, they call for public works, and they plow the roads. That prevents an accident. That prevents that, not the police, the fire, and the local EMS. Little things like that that might take 30 seconds a minute to do can actually save a lot of work in the long run. So, the consolidation of PSAPs is an undertaking that must be conducted with thorough planning, attention to detail, and input from all parties involved. And that's why you're here today, because people want your input. As the end result must be the development of a system or systems that provide the same level, if not increased level of service and public safety that's being provided to the PSAPs currently in Snyder and Union County. What you have today will get better. I came from Allegheny County, where at one time we had 70 public safety answering points. 220 fire departments, 120 police departments, 70 ambulance services, 120 municipalities, and they all did it right. And now you're down to 1 county 911 center that includes the city of Pittsburgh. And the level of service that has improved there is dramatic. Now it's time for Commissioner. And I'll be glad to answer any questions when John.
Thanks, Mike. I'm John Mathias, Union County Commissioner, and what is germane to absolutely nothing. I started out in college wanting to be a doctor. That lasted through the first organic chemistry class. I switched schools, switched majors. Tinkered with the idea of becoming a university professor. Spent 30-some years in business, and now here I am as a county commissioner. So we all end up in different places than we started out. That was all meant to be, kind of amusing, but I see this is serious group here, so as I said, it was germane to absolutely nothing. I'm going to talk a little bit about the next steps as we see them, but before I do that, I'd like to just back everybody up to give a little context to how we got to where we are. After the 2013 federally mandated narrowbanding the 911 narrowbanding project, which cost Union County about $3.5 million. We got together with Columbia Montour, along with Snyder and Union County, 12 commissioners and all of our 911 executive directors. Excuse me, met over in Danville to talk about, among other things, we don't want to have to go through that again. I mean, that is one expensive proposition. We know that technology is changing, and we're being hit with technological advances constantly. It's very expensive. When the feds decide they want to narrowband again, it's going to be a significant expense. So, but at that meeting, we also learned that Columbia and Montour counties had already begun having discussions about consolidating their two 911 systems, largely driven by the fact that Walt Deal, who was the 911 director in Montour County, was going to retire, and Montour County decided that rather than trying to hire a new 911 director, that they would just merge with Columbia County. The four counties continue to meet, talking about regional issues and how we can work together to become more efficient, save money, whatever. The 911 stuff still was hanging up there as the low-hanging fruit. And finally, we decided that because Columbia and Montour counties were so far advanced in their planning and so on, that it would be best for any further conversations about Union and Snyder County joining that effort to back off a little bit. You'll notice I didn't mention Northumberland County in that we had decided early on that, well, Union County was having difficulty getting Northumberland County's attention on its own 911 issues. And while I'm there, I do want to, because I saw Matt Burrows here earlier, when we're merging, we have a contract with Northumberland County, Upper Northumberland County, to dispatch up Northumberland County. That stays in place. None of that's going to change unless Northumberland County wants to change it. So I just want to give Upper Northumberland County the assurance that that's all part of this discussion. But in any case, it was decided that Union and Snyder counties would begin to have their own discussions. And a little over a year ago, Malcolm and I went out for lunch and just said, hey, if this is going to happen, we need to start thinking about it. And ironically, we're headed off to CCAP, the County Commissioners Association meetings this weekend in Hershey, and it was a year ago there that we met with Mike McGrady and said, would you be willing to do the study? So that's how we got to where we are. We do understand that putting two things together is significantly less confusing than trying to putting more than two things together. It gets exponentially more difficult when you add a third or a fourth entity. So what really makes sense to us, and particularly given the fact that the two counties have been joined at the hip on a lot of cases over the years, that it would make sense for us to start out with a combination of the two. So we are at this point, and as Mike had mentioned, the design is that on December the 6th, which would be the next Tuesday that both counties have public meetings, that we will enact an ordinance, each county will enact an ordinance that will allow us to enter into an intergovernmental agreement for the purposes of consolidated 911. That agreement has already been drafted. We've pretty much signed off on the agreement itself. The public meetings next week require a written notice. We have to advertise the fact that we will be entertaining this ordinance. So we momentarily thought that because this is also a meeting day for both counties, that in case there was anything that might happen to come before either of the two commission boards, that we would have a Tuesday to do it. But that's clearly not going to happen. So the fact that this is a meeting day doesn't mean anything. The intergovernmental agreement basically establishes another entity. It will be the Central Susquehanna Valley 911 regional system, for lack of anything else right now. But it will be a completely separate entity, not unlike the Community Action Agency, for instance, where we sit as a two-county commissioner joiner board. All 6 of us have fiduciary responsibility for that entity, and this will be very similar. So all of the employees of the consolidated 911 system will be employees of the joiner. And we're doing it unlike Montour and Columbia counties, where essentially it's Columbia County's 911 system and Montour contributes funding for it. But the 911 folks are employees of Columbia County. This will be different. This will be a separate entity and be jointly managed by both counties. We're doing that because we do currently have 2 different pay scales. We do have 2 different benefit structures, 2 different retirement plans that we're going to have to figure out. But the idea is to get everybody operating under the same set of guidelines, the same set of policies, and the same pay structures. There will be an oversight board that will work through all the details and manage the details of the consolidation. Representatives from both counties, commissioners, I will be the representative from Union County, and Malcolm Dirk will be the representative from Snyder County. We will also have a member of each of our 911 staffs. Lisa James from Union County and Cheryl Stiefel from Snyder County will represent both those counties. And the first job that we will have to do is to hire a consultant. We will be asking for requests for proposals shortly. I think we can probably imagine who the front runner is because of all of the great work that they've done in helping us sort through all this. But those are the next steps. So we expect that by Tuesday, December the 6th, we will have the approval of both county boards to form the joiner, and we'll get started from there. Obviously, we're going to want a lot of input from the first responder groups. As we go through this, we know that we have some different protocols to deal with and so on, but we assure you that at the end of this, we're going to have a better system, and it's going to be much less costly for the Union and Snyder County taxpayers than what we have right now. So with that, if you have any questions for any of us, now would be the time. Dave.
Yes, I'm Mifflinburg Mayor David Kinney. My background also is in biology. I only add that because if any of you have children studying biology, you might want to talk to them and see what it gets. Alleviate my fears, if you would, a little bit. I do not monitor Snyder County Dispatch, but I do listen to Union County Dispatch. And I'm extremely pleased with Union County Dispatch in that the dispatchers are intimately familiar with where they're dispatching. It's not uncommon to hear something like, okay, you're going to go out Grand Valley Road, you're going to take a right on Swery Road. Keep in mind the sign's been missing for 3 weeks, but you're going to turn across from a little mailbox that's painted like a schoolhouse. How is that intimate familiarity with the routes and rural areas going to carry over when you're covering such a large area?
Well, I might not be able to. You want to take a shot at this?
Sure. I'll take a shot. A couple things. One is the employees at Union County will continue to work at the the 911 center. So when you set this up, you will make sure that when you have daylights through 11 and night turn, that you have so many Snyder County former employees, so many Union County former employees, so that you have the proper people working for instances like that. Also, when you look at, going back to the GIS I had mentioned before, when you get a good geographic informational system, and it's all map-based, that information, when you call in, not only does it show you the point in your house, it shows you your house. It shows, all the an orthophotography of your whole area. So also what you do is you take all the common places. How many McDonald's are there in your two counties? How many Walmarts are there? You take all of those and actually build them into your system. So when someone calls up and says, I'm right across from the PSP barracks, okay, do you know what town you're in? Well, I'm over here. You can actually type in PSP barracks and it'll list all the barracks that there are. The same thing for, you can type in all the Walmarts, you can type in all the Wawa gas stations or Sheets. All the information you put in there, but all of that comes from the information that's already in your current system, and you migrate that to the new system. The good thing is, though, you take out all the junk that shouldn't be in there. How many alerts are in there for, somebody's baby that, was on a baby apnea monitor, they're on an apnea monitor and they came home. Well, you look at the date that was put in, in 2004. Well, that kid's going to college next year. So you can take out all the old information out and just have the good information in. But, it would be a combination of staffing, as well as a lot of it would be familiarization. So if you are going to take Snyder County dispatchers to dispatch Union County services, well, then you're going to have them right along with them. You're going to have them go out in the field so they can actually see the areas that they're going to be covering, whether it's police, whether it's fire, whether it's EMS. And that's part of it, the ride along so they can actually become familiar. A lot of what you teach them is geography. These are all the hot spots. I always say you look for high call volume, high profile, high incident areas, and make sure that everybody who's working knows where they're at. But again, I think at the end of the day, you're actually going to have probably better staffing and better information in your system, so that continues to be a good benefit to you, but actually is improved. So I hope I answered your question.
You did, thank
And since Mike did mention GIS, you should probably know that Union County is really, really proud of its GIS system. And our director, Sue Reese, is here. I don't want to embarrass you, but she is already providing GIS services for both Union and Snyder counties now, and have been for the last year, and that will continue. So. Yes?
Hi there. My name is James Kepler. I'm here basically today as a concerned citizen, and I have 30 plus years of emergency service experience, anywhere from having been one of the original telecommunicators here in Snyder County to protecting the President of the United States. I'm puzzled. I'm kind of puzzled here. I'm coming into this late, and by the way, I taught emergency services for the University of Maryland and also for the North Carolina Community College system. So I'm kind of puzzled here a little bit. What exactly is driving this? Is this the state driving this, or because I'm not seeing, generally when you consolidate something, you're getting a monetary savings of some kind, or some kind of a less duplication of effort. And the only place I'm seeing this happen here is in facilities. And I'm seeing Union County kind of benefiting on the facilities part of this because they got a smaller center and they're coming to a bigger center. But staffing-wise, staffing is staying the same, so there's no savings there. And I'm kind of a little lost here, and I'm also kind of trying to grasp the fact that this is actually covering basically 2.5 counties, almost, maybe to an extent almost 3, realistically, because Union covers also Northumberland, and having experienced both operations in rural areas and super metro areas, consolidation works real well in metro areas, kind of like the Allegheny example he was giving, because everything is blocks and streets pretty much, and you get out in the rural area, just like the mayor said, over here is the post, turn at the post, those kind of directions, and trying to grasp almost 2.5, 3 counties worth of those kind of information kind of is eluding to me too. And every place I've worked in the last probably 20 plus years has maintained their county centers just fine. You don't see this happening down south, and so I'm just trying to grasp this a little better, I guess.
importantly, it'll take the existing funds you have, you know, and then it'll make you eligible for the regional funds that, you know, the state has, to actually have a better facility, whether it's technology, whether it's training, whether it's quality assurance, whether it's GIS that we talked about. And you're gonna have a more manageable facility where you are gonna have a 911 coordinator who just handles the actual who handles the personnel, the budgets, et cetera. You're gonna have an operations manager, and their full focus will be on the technology and the actual operations physically in the center. You're gonna have your training quality assurance person who can do that full time instead of part-time or quarter time, so that they're actually make sure that your staff is trained to the best of their ability, as well as good quality assurance. And again, we talked about the CAD. It also makes you eligible for, again, the fundings for the regional projects where you can get additional funding so that you'll have better technology. Part of the issue you have right now is you have 2 people working at a time. 2 people that are covering a county and a half. 2 people that are covering another county. That's all you have. You know, what do you do if you get 3 calls? What do you do if you have 3 major incidents for at one time? When you only have 10 staff and the big one hits, how many people can you actually call in from home that are fully trained on your system? In this situation, you have 21 full-time people. You have 4 people working all the time. That gives you 17 people when the big one hits, or we know the blizzard's coming, or we have to go 12-hour shifts because a tornado came through one of the communities, and we have to staff up to 6 people in the center. That's really where you're gonna benefit. Right now, you have 2 small centers that are doing a good job, but they can be better combined as one center. Again, I came from public safety. I wouldn't recommend this if I didn't think this was the best interest, of the 2 counties. So what I foresee is you're going to have better training, better quality assurance. You're going to have better management, of your facilities. You're going to have better technology, and more importantly, you're going to have adequate staffing to handle the call volume of both the counties, and especially when large-scale incidents occur. You're going to have additional staffing, additional positions that you can bring people in from home to handle it.
Yeah, the tax bite out of the general fund from at least Union County, contributions to 911, which is all supposed to be covered by charges on initially landlines and then some cell phone lines, is now thousands of dollars a year. And that's continuing to go up as the reimbursement has continued to slide down. In the meantime, the cost of upgrading technology has gone up. So legitimately, as the fiduciaries of at least in my case, Union County's taxpayers, I have to start thinking about ways that we can do things more efficiently. And I agree that as you expand, as you regionalize, that you lose a little bit of some of the personal touch. I'm not asking somebody that's a dispatcher that lives in Beavertown to understand where that tree is outside of Mifflinburg. But as they said, the technology is there. The GIS coordinates are there, so you don't necessarily have to know that you go down between these 2 trees. You just need to know the coordinates of where you're headed. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think that we could provide a better 911 service. But you do have issues like if there's a pileup on Interstate 80, you don't get 1 call. Everybody on their cell phone that has seen that is calling into 911, and that's coming into, if it happens now, in upper Northumberland County, we're right through the end of our Interstate 80 line in Union County, that's coming into us. So you do have that, and the ability to have more people available to answer calls, to dispatch, is pretty compelling. And the dollar savings are enormous over the course of time. They are really enormous. So that's what has me to the table. This is a task force that is going to set out with the assumption that we are going to move into the consolidation. If anything happens along the way that suggests that it doesn't make any sense, we'll back off. But we're going into this with the intent that it does make a whole lot of sense, largely out of the study that Mike's group have done, and just the sheer sense on mountains in my part, as well as our colleague commissioners, that this is worthwhile taking a look at.
I simply wanted to add one other thing, and perhaps you missed the earlier slide with maintenance agreement costs and also the equipment replacement costs that are projected. there was over $1 million in the one slide alone, without talking about all of the other maintenance costs, of savings projected. The other thing I wanted to say is, all 6 of these county commissioners that were involved in this process, we live in these counties. We also want 911 to be available to us, to protect our families, to protect our homes, if the need be. We would not be making this decision if we felt that that would jeopardize the response time and also the safety of our first responders. We live in this community, and we want to see it protected as it's been. And I will not approve anything that lowers what we offer to the community that's offered today. We will not authorize that. Because we're users as well.
Just a little follow-up on the 2 questions, actually, on the staffing side of it. Stating that there's basically going to be 4 people on each shift is probably how that would be. I know you can fluctuate that to some degree, but that really is pretty much what we have now between the 2 counties, 2 in Snyder, 2 in Union. So maybe a little clarification how, because it's going to still be the same call volume, maybe even more, how you still have 4 people doing the job, that they're just going to be in one center now doing that. And secondly, the money that's available for FEMA, is that just on the 911 side of things, or is that money that's also available for fire, police, EMS, and any costs that they might incur?
The FEMA money is just for 911. That cannot be used for portables, mobiles, things like that. There's not a lot of use. It can be used for all the connectivity. It can be used for anything from the base radio to the tipping antenna, back to the PSAP. Any of the technology, so if we're going to use fiber or microwave to connect 2 radio systems together, if we need to upgrade the radio consoles, etc., all of that will come out to 2% money. But it's not allowed to be used for field user equipment. That's not in the act. Going back to what you're saying is, so right now you have understaffing of the centers, just by a short amount. So you have 2 and 2. But the fact of the matter is, you have 2 people that are under police, fire, EMS, as well as call takers. So 2 people are trying to do 4 things. In this situation, you put 4 people in the same center. Well, again, what I would probably see is at times you would have 5 people working based on call volume. So what you do is you look at the demographics and the calls that are coming in and decide when do you need 4, when do you need that 5th person. You might have power shifts from 10 to 6 and 6 to 2, or from 11 to 7 and 7 to 3 that gives you that additional person. It's pretty easy to look at statistics and say, we know that in the summertime, in July and August, on Friday nights and Saturday nights, our call volume goes up by this many points. Right now, they don't even have the staffing to put that person on, the extra person right now. Because, when you have 9 full-time people and 1 part-time, you can barely cover your shifts. You don't have that extra person to put on. You don't have that luxury to put that extra person on. In this situation, when you have additional staffing, you can decide how you want to staff that center, based on call volume and demographics and things like that. Plus, you can then separate things up. You can have just a police dispatcher, a fire dispatcher, a call taker, and then you can have the person who fills in with the police dispatcher or the fire dispatcher if you get a working structure fire. So somebody can actually monitor your fire ground operations. When you have more people, when you do have the working structure fire that's going to be going all day, you can actually call somebody from home, an additional person, so they can actually monitor your fire ground operations. It's pretty difficult right now to monitor fire ground operations when you're dispatching a fire company, you're dispatching EMS, you're taking the 911 call at the same time. So you're going to have more efficiencies in your system is how that's going to occur. Because those additional people give you that option. Right now, they don't have an option to put an extra person on because they don't have enough people to do it.
My name is Dan Isley. I'm a network engineer from Eco Technology Solutions, a service provider who's worked for both counties, and also I personally have worked with a number of other public safety agencies in Pennsylvania and in Western New York. Are there any considerations being made for backup dispatch centers or backup solutions in the event of some major event?
Yes. So there is what's called the North Central Consortium, and that is Mifflin, Snyder, Union, Tioga, Clinton, Lycoming, Sullivan, Potter, Wyoming, Bradford County, 11 total counties that are going together on a joint project. So you're going to have what's called the ESI net, Emergency Service Intranet, we'll call it. So it's going to be a combination of fiber and microwave that's going to connect all 11 counties together, sort of like the northern tier. So it'll be a minimum of 167 megabit, connections. Some of them will be bigger, but that's the minimum you're going to have. So they'll all be connected together. They're going to look at sharing the 911 switches. So you'll have, one 911 switch in Lycoming County, we'll say, and we'll have one in Columbia County. Columbia's one of the other ones that are joining. And they'll all be connected together. After 911 comes to go to one half, after 911 comes to go to the other half, go through different cams, etc. You'll have diverse entrances into both PSAPs. So if by chance this PSAP would go underwater, it doesn't matter. Lycoming County or whoever you designate as your backup center would actually answer your 911 call. And since we do have microwave connectivity and fiber connectivity, they can also have all your radio channels in their radio consoles, so they can actually dispatch your calls. So that is part of a bigger regional plan than just this. But the answer is yes. The days of actually having a backup facility are going away. Because your backup facility is your next fully staffed 911 center. That'd be like having a backup police station, but have no police officers there. That's a nice thing to have that, but if you knock on the door and there's no one there, it's the same thing. I have a backup 911 center. How long does it take you to get there? Well, 30 minutes. Well, what happens to your calls for 30 minutes? In this situation, someone answers your calls. And you can also use that for overflow. If you can set timers. So if by chance you get a big accident on I-80 and the phone's ringing, well, the fact of the matter is, if you have 20 people calling and you have 5 people working, you can't get to everybody. Your calls after a period of time would actually roll over to your region, your next 911 that you designate. They would actually answer that call for you, process that call, and then give that information back to you. So that way, that caller, somebody answers that phone, and that's all part of next generation 911. You can even look at a regional CAD system where you're sharing computer and dispatching. So theoretically, a few years down the line, not only could I answer your call, I could process your call. And if you're tied up, I could dispatch your call. When I hit the enter key, that call shows back up on Union County's or Snyder County's CAD screen, so they know I actually dispatched your units for you because you were tied up. But that's where technology is going today. But going back to our friend's question back there, the concern, there's only a certain amount of money out there. So that's why I actually write the legislation for 911 Pennsylvania too. I work with the House and the Senate and the different carriers and the different associations. So there's only a certain amount of money out there. So if you can regionalize technology, if you can consolidate centers together, then the money that's out there, there's more of it for each county to use to do the things that you're talking about, to get the staffing that our friend over here concerns about, to alleviate the fears back there. So if you can go from 69 PSAPs, say down to 60, that's a lot more money. Because then there's less people also put into the regional projects. There's more regional project money to go back to the regional projects or the consolidations. So it's sort of the legislature knew that if we were able to incentivize things like this, that it would occur, and then there's more money for each county and less drain on the county budgets also.
And Dan, the project that Mike is mentioning, that will go forward. The interconnectivity with the other counties will go forward outside of whatever process takes place here, because it is important that both counties have that connectivity with a broader network in case there'd be a problem, and there's a redundancy in that connection, as Mike mentioned. There's fiber lines, but there's also microwave lines, so that there are paths if one is severed, there's a secondary path.
Sure. A little bit, I'm Paul Williams from Sealandsburg, Vermont. A little while ago, you mentioned the 2013 and the narrow band, that was a necessity, but are there any expenses that are going to be attributable to this consolidation to either local government, fire, EMS, PSP, sheriff department, for mobile radios or portable radios, or is it seamless?
So right now, Union County would actually keep their radio system as is, as would Snyder. And Mike, you want to?
We'll just connect into each county's existing radio system. There's no reason to change out your existing radio system you have. Anything that is related to the actual merger or consolidation will be picked up by the 15% funding. So the county won't have to pay that. That'll actually come from the 15%, more or less coming off your cell phone bill, your home bill, your business bill. That's where the money's coming from. But no, we see no additional cost for any police, fire, EMS, local municipality whatsoever.
Vince Stoops, Sealands Group. So I'm not at fire EMS, my question's on the citizen side. Recently, I mean, there were questions about exploitation of our 911 system in Sealands Grove, and I had to file a complaint, or sort of, kind of. Who would I be filing a complaint with after this merger? I mean, it sounds like you guys have both appointed yourselves to the board, but who's the governmental agency I, as a citizen, would go to and say, hey, 911 didn't pick up for 10 rings and I had a fire?
The commissioners have governmental responsibility for the joinder.
Well, no, I get that, but, you know, so say there's a problem and it's a Union County employee who screwed up, but I live in Snyder County. You know, who am I complaining to?
As you can now, you reach out to the 911 coordinator as your first point of contact. They will attempt to resolve your complaint at the first step. After that, if you're not satisfied, you can appeal to the full joinder board.
So no longer will it be a board that me and my citizens elected, it would be a board that me and citizens from a whole region of people sort of selected and you guys appointed yourselves to. Like, it's no longer the people that we directly elected?
Of 6 commissioners that are all directly elected.
So it'll be all 6 commissioners that would sit on that board?
That's correct.
Okay.
You might have misunderstood that. The joinder board is made up of all 6 commissioners. We already have joinder boards for the Community Action Agency. I'm not sure if you've interacted with the Community Action Agency at all, but that is an agency that has been long functioning in both counties. We've been working together as a team of 6, and similar things happen there. The executive director, Sue Alman, right now is the one who's tasked with the day-to-day. So if you had a complaint with their running of some program, you would let Sue know. And then if you're not satisfied with how she responds to your complaint, you could bring it to the full joinder board.
Why not a new building? And plan for future expansion of employee or the center itself?
Our architects looked at that, and, you know, based on the Snyder County design, you know, there's more than enough room for now. What's nice about that facility is you can expand on 3 sides. So if we did need down the line to expand, you have the room to do it,
Yeah,
but there's no reason to do it now. There's no reason to
Okay,
spend the
so
money.
if you need to expand later, so now the construction is gonna interrupt the process of 911 during the day.
No, never does. I've expanded many centers. You know, you set it up the right way, and, you know, I've actually built 911 centers on top of 911 centers. But in this situation, there's no reason to spend, you know, additional funding when all we really need to do is just remodel, reconfigure the space that's there. There's no reason to add on because they don't need the additional space, you know, at this time. And under the floor, we're gonna make sure there's room for 2 additional positions to actually have food there. You know, unless you have another full-size county that's gonna join this, there will be no reason to expand the footprint, you know, in that facility. You know, there really wouldn't be. Well, I was just looking at the way you have it set up today, and improving that. But even if you said that we wanted to add on additional space, you put up sound barriers, you know, you do everything separate, that it doesn't affect the operations. We, on a regular basis, we remodel existing 911 centers with them in the facility, you know, so that you don't affect that operations. And again, by having redundant systems, you know, you don't have to really worry about something going wrong that's going to shut them off. But there's really no need to spend the money. I'm not an architect, you know, the architects came in, looked at it, they looked at space, they did a space study, and they said, by doing this, you can stay within the footprint you're in. There's no reason to do any new construction. And there's really no reason to put a new facility in. You know, to build it, there's a lot of 911 centers. You know, you're looking at millions of dollars if you want to build a new 911 center from the ground up. You know, we're not talking $100,000, we're talking millions of dollars. In Tioga counties, you know, was $5-some million. Clinton County was over $3 million. So when you look at other 6, you know, Elk counties, it was $3 million. When you look at 7-class size counties, that's what it costs to build a new facility. You know, if we can spend $700,000 to renovate a new facility, you know, and make it, you know, as good as a brand new one, you know, and we like to renovate facilities instead of building new, because you know what you have when you're in a facility like that. So it's really not, there's really no need to do it, number one, and there's no sense in spending that money when you don't have to.
And again, we did ask Mike and his team to look at all the options. So we did ask, look at locating in Union, look at locating in Snyder, and John will tell you. But
No, I got the phone call from Mike, says, can we break into your training center? No. Can we break into your cafeteria? No. Thank you. That was the end of the conversation.
In the wetlands.
In the wetlands, that's right. So,
the point is that we did not have any preconceived idea of where this would be, whether it would be a new facility. I know that some dispatchers said, wouldn't it be nice to have one on New Berlin Mountain? And Peggy heard that numerous times. But ultimately, we wanted to see an unbiased perception of what we've got, the technology that's already there, and Mike was able to offer that, we believe, and come up with this recommendation.
When you look at a facility, you look at, is there parking? Number one. Are there facilities, whether it's telco, or etc. Is there a tower nearby? There's a tower right next to the facility. Is there land to expand down the line if I need additional parking, if I want to bring the hazmat, over here? We look at all those things before you make a determination. When you're looking at, do I want to build a new greenfield site? Sometimes, we do build new greenfield sites. We're building a new greenfield site right now for Crawford County because there was no place to expand, there was no place to go, so we built a new greenfield site. But in this situation, you have a really nice facility that we could renovate for a reasonable cost, and it'll take care of you now and the next 20 years. And that's what we'll look at in the architect's opinion.
And the setup stays the same within the center, the way it is now?
No, there'll be some changes. There'll be some changes because if you're going to reconfigure and have 6 full positions, then you want to look at what's the best configuration we can make for that facility. So I believe there will be some reconfiguration of the furniture and things like that, absolutely. But again, that's something we'll work with the project team and the architects and the staff to decide, what type of renovations we're going to make, how do we want to make the renovations, and what's the best, call flow, best process flow for them to use in the center. These like telecommunicators and everybody that works there. So hey, this is how we're set up now, what would work better? And that's what you do. But the actual footprint of the facility is going to stay the same.
Anyone ask questions? Lunchtime? Well, thanks very much for coming. We're committed to making sure that this is an open and transparent process as we possibly can. As I said, December 6th will be the day that
Except it's already decided. Except it's already decided, exactly.
Joinder, and we'll be looking to have a lot of sessions in the evening hours over here in Union County as we go forward. So thanks very much for coming. It's really wonderful to see you.